For nearly half a century, the United States and Iran have remained locked in one of the world's most dangerous rivalries. They've fought through sanctions, secret operations, proxy wars, and cyber attacks. And now, once again, the risk of direct military conflict is growing. But here's the question. Why are these two nations still fighting after almost 50 years? Is it really about nuclear weapons, oil, the Middle East? Or is there a much deeper story that most people have never been told? Because once you understand what happened decades ago, everything happening today suddenly starts to make sense. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why America and Iran became enemies, why tensions have flared up again, and why this conflict could affect the entire world. Believe it or not, the United States and Iran were once close allies. During the Cold War, Iran was one of Washington's most important partners in the Middle East. Under Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, Iran bought American weapons, cooperated with US intelligence, and was seen as a key ally against Soviet influence. But beneath that partnership, anger was quietly growing. Many Iranians believed their country had become too dependent on foreign powers. They also remembered a major turning point in 1953, when a coup backed by the United States and the United Kingdom helped remove Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh after he nationalized Iran's oil industry. That event left a lasting legacy of mistrust that still shapes how many Iranians view Washington today. Over the years, dissatisfaction with the Shah's rule increased. Protests spread across the country. And in 1979, everything changed. In 1979, the government of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi collapsed. Millions of Iranians took to the streets. After months of nationwide protests, the Shah left the country, and Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned from exile. Iran was no longer a monarchy. It had become an Islamic republic, led by a revolutionary government that rejected what it saw as excessive foreign influence, especially from the United States. But the real turning point came just months later. November 4th, 1979. A group of Iranian students stormed the US Embassy in Tehran. More than 50 American diplomats and staff were taken hostage. What was expected to last only a few days continued for 444 days. Across the United States, millions of people watched the crisis unfold on television every night. Families waited. Presidents faced enormous pressure, and the relationship between the two countries was transformed almost overnight. In response, Washington froze Iranian assets, imposed sanctions, and later severed diplomatic relations with Tehran. Those formal diplomatic ties have never been fully restored. From that moment on, America no longer viewed Iran as a trusted partner, and Iran's new leadership increasingly portrayed the United States as its principal foreign adversary. The alliance that had lasted for decades had become one of the world's longest-running geopolitical rivalries. But if diplomatic relations were already broken, why did the conflict continue for decades instead of ending there? The answer lies in a war that changed the entire Middle East. Just when the new Iranian government was trying to rebuild the country, another disaster struck. In September 1980, neighboring Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, launched a full-scale invasion of Iran. Saddam believed Iran had been weakened by the revolution. He also feared that Iran's revolutionary ideology could inspire unrest among Iraq's own Shiite population. What he expected to be a quick victory turned into one of the bloodiest wars of the 20th century. For nearly 8 years, millions of soldiers and civilians were caught in a brutal conflict that left hundreds of thousands dead and caused enormous destruction on both sides. Although the United States did not formally enter the war, it gradually provided Iraq with economic assistance, intelligence support, and certain forms of military-related cooperation, as Washington sought to contain revolutionary Iran. From Tehran's perspective, this was another moment that reinforced the belief that Washington was working against Iran's interests. When the war finally ended in 1988, there was no clear winner, but there was something far more dangerous. The distrust between the United States and Iran had become deeply entrenched. By the early 2000s, the conflict between the United States and Iran had entered a new phase. It was no longer centered on embassies or conventional wars. Instead, the world's attention turned to Iran's nuclear program. Iran insisted that its nuclear activities were designed for peaceful purposes, such as generating electricity and advancing scientific research. The United States, along with several of its allies, argued that the program could eventually give Iran the capability to build a nuclear weapon. Iran has consistently denied that it is seeking a nuclear bomb, while international inspectors and governments have debated the extent and purpose of its nuclear activities for years. As tensions grew, the international community imposed wave after wave of economic sanctions. Iran's economy came under heavy pressure. Its currency lost value, inflation rose, and ordinary Iranians felt the impact in their daily lives. Then, in 2015, something unexpected happened. After years of negotiations, Iran and 6 world powers reached a landmark agreement known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, or JCPOA. Under the deal, Iran agreed to place significant limits on parts of its nuclear program and allow enhanced international inspections. In return, many international sanctions were lifted. For a brief moment, it looked as if decades of hostility might finally begin to ease. But that hope didn't last. In 2018, the United States withdrew from the agreement and reinstated broad sanctions on Iran. Iran later reduced its compliance with several of the deal's restrictions, and tensions between the two countries rose once again. But even after the nuclear deal collapsed, the United States and Iran still avoided fighting each other directly. So how did they continue their conflict without officially declaring war? The answer lies in something known as a proxy war. Despite decades of hostility, the United States and Iran have almost never fought a full-scale declared war against each other. Instead, they've spent years competing through what experts often call a shadow war. Rather than sending massive armies directly into battle, both sides have often pursued their goals through intelligence operations, economic pressure, cyber activities, regional partners, and military deployments across the Middle East. Over the years, conflicts in countries like Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen have become closely linked to the broader rivalry between Washington and Tehran. The United States has maintained military forces and partnerships across the region. Iran has built relationships with various regional armed groups and political allies, saying it does so to strengthen its security and influence. Washington, however, argues that some of these groups threaten regional stability and the security of US forces and allies. As a result, tensions have repeatedly escalated through missile attacks, drone strikes, cyber operations, and clashes involving US personnel and regional armed groups. Then, in January 2020, the rivalry reached one of its most dangerous moments. A US drone strike near Baghdad International Airport killed Qasem Soleimani, a senior Iranian military commander. The United States said the strike was intended to prevent future attacks on American personnel. Iran condemned the operation and later launched missile strikes against bases in Iraq that housed US troops. For several days, the world feared that the two countries might be on the brink of a much larger war. Although a direct war did not follow, the relationship never returned to where it had been before. Instead, the rivalry entered an even more unpredictable phase. So if both countries had managed to avoid a full-scale war for decades, why has the world once again started talking about the possibility of direct conflict? What changed, and why are tensions rising again today? After decades of sanctions, proxy conflicts, and failed diplomatic efforts, the rivalry between the United States and Iran has entered another dangerous phase. In recent weeks, military tensions have escalated sharply. The United States says its operations are intended to protect international shipping, deter attacks on US forces and partners, and reduce Iran's military capabilities. Iran argues that it is defending its sovereignty and responding to foreign military action and pressure. At the center of this latest crisis is one narrow stretch of water, the Strait of Hormuz. Although only about 33 kilometers or 21 miles wide at its narrowest point, it is one of the world's most important energy corridors. A large share of globally traded oil passes through this waterway every day. That means even a limited military confrontation here can send shockwaves through the global economy. Recent attacks on commercial shipping, renewed US military strikes, and heightened security measures have disrupted traffic through the strait, while governments and international organizations have urged restraint to prevent a wider conflict. Today, the world is watching closely, not only because of what happens between Washington and Tehran, but because the consequences could extend far beyond the Middle East. History teaches us one important lesson. Wars rarely begin overnight. They are often the result of years, or even decades, of mistrust, political decisions, and missed opportunities. The story of the United States and Iran isn't just about missiles, sanctions, or nuclear negotiations. It's the story of how history continues to shape the present. Whether this rivalry moves toward diplomacy or deeper confrontation will depend on choices that have yet to be made. But one thing is certain: as long as tensions between the United States and Iran continue, the entire world will be watching. This is Conflict Insider,